John McMullen joins us every day. Check out all of his work at 973ESPN.com. Follow on Twitter at JF McMullen for all your Eagles and NFL news and notes. John, how was your Thanksgiving?
Very good. How was your Thanksgiving? And Hunter is there as well. I hope you guys had a good time.
I thought I did well.
I had a good day at the office. Can't complain. Had some family over, relaxed, watched the Dallas Cowboys lose. It was a good one.
Yeah, the Dallas Cowboys. A little Jerry Jones cheers instead of wine for your Thanksgiving dinner.
John, I actually wanted to start with, we've been talking, the topic of Carson Wentz came up. And I wanted to ask you about actually similar to what happened last night, the game after the Cowboys game, the Falcons and Saints game. We saw Matt Ryan. He's without his number one receiver, Julio Jones. He's without an offensive lineman. And he got sacked, 9 times last night? And I feel like people don't understand how important it is for a quarterback, no matter who he is, if plays are off schedule or you don't have the talent around you. I think Matt Ryan showed part of the reason why Wentz has not been the 2017 Wentz this year is because part of it is he doesn't have all the weapons around him. Is that a fair assessment to make to compare Matt Ryan's situation to Wentz's?
Yeah, I think it's very fair. Where I would be a little bit concerned, I think at some point, certainly in 2017, when Carson was on his way to being the MVP of this league, I thought there was the assumption by many that he was going to be that next tier, that top tier, whoever you want to put in it. But guys who do elevate some lesser talent around them, think about probably the best example of that would be Aaron Rodgers in his prime. No matter who they threw out there, who would make him look good as a receiver. I think Russell Wilson, to an extent, does it in the fact that, they've been playing the NFL. That's been the whole theme, NFL 100. They've been playing for 100 years. He's the first quarterback that has had a winning record this deep in his career, year after year after year after year. So wins and losses aren't a quarterback stat. You do need talent around you. But I think it's fair to say that Carson hasn't handled some of the adversity as well as could be hoped for. And I think best exemplified in the Seahawks game by all the turnovers. Look, you can't control if J.J. Arcega-Whiteside isn't running the right route, or Greg Ward, or some of these receivers that aren't top tier. What you can control, don't turn the football over, things like that. And if they don't turn the football over, they're in that game. I don't know if they're going to win it, but it's a one-score game. It could go either way. So there's part of what you're saying is right, but I think part of people disappointing is right as well, being disappointed, because if you thought Carson Wentz was a superstar, truly top-tier elite quarterback, he hasn't played like that this season. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and I think, John, the other thing that stood out to me is, Rodney Harrison mentioned on the broadcast last night, because he played with Drew Brees in San Diego. He said that he loved playing with Drew Brees, thought he was a super hard worker. He was always impressed with him, but he never thought Drew would be what he has become. And I'm in no way saying that Wentz is going to be Drew Brees, but I'm saying that there is some sort of, it's still a little early in the process to label him one thing or another. He still has the chance to develop into more of a player. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes too, that he was drafted in 2016. It's not like he's 10 years into his career yet.
No, definitely has a chance to improve. And every time you go out there and every time the minutes and the plays and the snaps and the repetitions pile up, in theory you see more, you can understand more. It's what Doug Peterson said before the Patriots game about Tom Brady. You can't develop anything defensively that he hasn't seen. So, of course, there's room for improvement. I think what the step back has to be, the recalibration has to be, is people thought he was already there. And that's some people, not all people, obviously, but that part was probably not true. Not probably, definitely not true. He needs personnel around him to be consistently good. And there are quarterbacks who, as I said in the past, very few though, who elevate the talent around them. And if you were thinking he was that at this stage of his career, he's not. But I don't think that's anything to panic over.
John, let's look a little bit into the practices that have went down this week. So I know Zach Ertz was a hot discussion, but before we get to him, I want to look at Jordan Howard and this stinger issue that occurred. He is still not cleared for contact. So what exactly is going on with Jordan Howard?
Well, a stinger, it's a nerve injury. So basically he has to pass the test where he has the same strength in the shoulder before the injury and after the injury. He hasn't gotten to that point, and that's what the point where the doctors will clear him. He's been practicing in a limited fashion basically since the week after the injury. So it is a little bit frustrating because he's been out there and been able to do certain things, but can't get cleared for contact. And if you can't play, you can't get cleared for contact, you can't play. And it's here we are again on Friday before a game. He's not cleared, so that's pretty good indication he's not going to play again Sunday. So it's going to be Miles Sanders and Jay Ajayi returning to Miami. That's going to be the running game for the Eagles.
Which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing as long as Doug Peterson commits to the run and doesn't forget about it in the second half. But let's look at Zach Ertz because he missed Wednesday and Thursday of practice, and then he was out at least on the field today?
Yeah, well, Thursday, Thanksgiving, it was an estimation because the Eagles didn't practice. They gave the players, coaches off for Thanksgiving, so it was just an estimation. But he was estimated as not practicing on Thanksgiving, didn't practice on Wednesday, and was back. And we'll get the injury report soon, I assume, in a limited fashion. But he expects to play. He didn't talk today, but saw him at the end of the open locker room period. And he said, "See you Sunday." So Dallas Goedert said he's going to play. Everybody expects him to play. I think the question with Zach is, how effective is he? Is this going to affect him? Can he play at his normal level? Can he play as much as his normal level? And remember, the Eagles have an open roster spot. They've been kind of holding that. And I think that'll tell you what they think of how much Zach can play, how close he's going to be to normal. If there's any concern, they're going to elevate Josh Perkins from the practice squad. If there's no concern, they're going to probably activate Cre'Von LeBlanc from injured reserve. So that roster move, which will probably come tomorrow, but it could come later today as well, will tell you a lot about how they're feeling about Zach Ertz. But he's definitely going to play.
I wanted to get your thoughts on J.J. Arcega-Whiteside playing the outside. Do you think this is more, do you think the lack of production we got out of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside so far is more about his skill level or the knowledge of the playbook?
The knowledge of the playbook and how he's picked up the offense. And, Dan Orlovsky got a lot of pub locally with his cut-up about the receivers and the routes they were running and kind of fooling Carson Wentz, put that in air quotes, and because they're not where they're supposed to be. And JJ's been one of those guys. And until he gets that part of it down, that was what was keeping him off the field. But I think the Eagles are at the point where I've been for a number of weeks and saying, well, it can't be worse. So throw him in the deep end of the pool and let him swim. And Doug kind of intimated that earlier in the week. It's his job now. He's got to go out there. They drafted him for a reason. And you've seen flashes. I mean, this is a team that hasn't gotten explosive plays in the passing game. And they're not necessarily big plays at big times, and it was garbage time. But the fact is, 29-yard catch, 30-yard catch, that kind of tells you JJ can elevate this group a little bit. But he definitely has to be more refined. But that's every rookie in this league. I mean, Miles Sanders makes a ton of mistakes as far as not being in the right spot at times, but the Eagles have used him. So I'm a little surprised it's taken them this long to get to this point, but we're finally here, and JJ's going to play.
John McMullen joining us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Follow on Twitter at JF McMullen for all your Eagles and NFL news and updates. John, another guy who people have a lot of questions about is what is going on the offensive line. Do we expect to see a full all 5 starters on the field Sunday?
Yes. Lane was cleared, so he's ready to go from concussion protocol. Brandon Brooks is going to be back from the anxiety attack. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to clean up a lot because you saw how many issues the Eagles had against the Seahawks on that right side. Andre Dillard just couldn't handle right tackle. And then the dominoes started to fall. Brandon only played 1 series. You had to put Vaitai in at right guard. Then you had to kick Vaitai in out to right tackle at halftime. And Matt Pryor goes in at right guard. So all those moving parts did not bode well for the Eagles' protection schemes. And that was part of the reason Carson performed poorly as well. And so you go from that to having all pro. That's the best right side in football when those guys are out there. So that should cure a lot of the ills from a pass protection standpoint, along with the fact that you're playing the Miami Dolphins,
right,
which is probably the least talented team in the NFL.
Well, that's kind of where I could go next, is that how much of the guys you're going to play versus not play have something to do with the opponent as well? Is there ever a point in time where an NFL team looks at who their opponent is one week and say, we can maybe get by without said player because we're playing said opponent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I asked Doug about the messaging this week because it's such a weird week. Not only do you have the holiday, so you're not in there on Thursday, which you typically is a big practice day in the week, but you're going to South Florida, and it's cold now, so you're going to nice weather. South Florida flu, they call it in pro sports, where guys get down there and have a little bit too much fun. The fact that it's a 1 o'clock game probably helps that aspect of it because you don't want anybody getting into any trouble. That's 2. And the third part is the human nature of they see what we see. This team stinks. I think there's no other there's a human nature part of that to have a little bit of a letdown. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles struggled a little bit early because it's tough to take this team seriously. They don't, I often talk about tanking. Coaches and players don't tank. Executives do. And you have to give Brian Flores credit for keeping this team playing. But, man, he's been dealt a losing hand. And it's hard to look at that team and play the Lou Holtz game. If you remember Lou Holtz, when he was at Notre Dame and they were really, really good, he would talk up everybody like they were the 85 Chicago Bears. And that's sort of what you do with the Dolphins. And Doug said it today. They're a really good football team, the Miami Dolphins. Well, no, they're not. And everybody knows they're not. And the players know they're not. So there is, as I said, a natural letdown aspect to it. And you just hope if it does occur, you recover pretty quickly once the live bullets start firing. But it's real.
So there was a rumor going around last week that Alshon Jeffrey was cleared to play but didn't. Now, that can obviously violate a contract if true. So I just want to know, is there any facts around that situation that occurred?
The Eagles thought he was going to play, and then he woke up and had a bit of an issue and indicated he couldn't play. So, a lot of that is semantics. Was he cleared to play? Yeah, he's cleared to play now as well if he wants to fight through the pain. And as I said, the Eagles thought he was going to play last week, as Doug Peterson's comments on the record would lead you to believe, trending in a positive direction. And then he woke up Sunday morning and didn't feel right. So, no, I don't think there's anything as far as, detrimental to the team or anything of that nature. But as far as is the organization disappointed? What are they expecting him? They were expecting him to play. So can they be disappointed at that? I'm sure they could, but I don't think it's going to manifest itself into anything more than that.
Follow him on Twitter at JF McMullen for all your Eagles NFL news and updates. Also, check out all his work at 97.3 ESPN.com. Eagles injury report comes out a little bit later today. Of course, the Eagles are in Miami to play the Dolphins. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN.com. John will be all over it. John, appreciate your time and the flexibility today.
All right, no problem. Thanks, guys.